Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having us come and talk to you today. And what a great agenda, because we are going to sort of tie back to some of the things that Jordan and Joe talked about earlier in the day. But I wanted to talk first about this ecosystem that we've entered into with this investment. And it is a very, it's new because of the streamers. So we're going to talk about the adjacency of betting and why curling is so important in this world. But the niche sports world is really being developed because there is a, let's call it an infinite shelf space with streamers. So unlike in the past, at the NFL, for instance, where you're selling monstrous broadcast audiences for what I will call linear advertising opportunities and sponsorship and all of that, with the streaming guys getting into sports, their main goal is a subscriber. So if you can create a portfolio of content that keeps subscribers on your platform over a long period of time, that's how you're going to win. And that's what all of these leagues are banking on. We are monetizing our content over streaming platforms around the world so that those platforms can aggregate those audiences and keep their business sustainable. So this is why you're seeing, people say, well, such a small audience. And in fact, curling has a decent audience, but such a small audience, how can it be? It doesn't need to be huge, because if I'm a streamer and you're watching curling, but you get maybe tired of that and you want to watch Sail GP or whatever, I'm indifferent. And that's a really interesting part of this ecosystem and what's driving the economics of all these little leagues. And I truly believe, Alex, I don't know where you are, whether it's 8 years or whatever, there will be a consolidation and a roll-up, Jordan, of these niche leagues into a world where they really, really start to drive exposure, relevance, and popularity. I'm going to turn it over to my buddy here now, nice hat, who's going to talk about why curling and why this was so exciting for me to be a part of, for me to invest in, and just going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Maryann. And our first seed fundraise actually closed about an hour and a half ago. So it's a pretty exciting day. And of course, thanks to Relay and all the incredible team, John and Simon, for being our support and being our shepherds. So, first and foremost, I'm not a curler. And one of the things that started becoming pretty obvious to me as I got into being a supporter of the sport, when I became the first employee of PointsBet Canada, I built the business, built the brand in this country. The first deal I did was with Curling Canada. And I had no idea how big the sport was globally. I started doing some research and I realized that over 250 million people consider themselves curling fans around the world. Curling is the most watched Winter Olympics sport. And my amazing team, my co-founder Mike Cotton and our CFO Mike Cook is here. And they've heard me use this analogy all the time, but it's very rare to come across an experience where you know exactly when lightning is going to strike the clock tower. So the reality is every 4 years, as mentioned, curling is the most popular Winter Olympic sport. Knowing that it has a massive global audience, when we've been seeing all of the trends around secondary niche sports, both raising money and selling franchises over the last number of years, the thing that's most exciting about us and about curling is the fact that we already have an established global market, but it's been under-monetized. It's been underutilized because up until this point, the only media companies that have ever controlled and distributed the content to curling fans have been Canadian media companies that don't actually care about the opportunities to grow their audience outside of Canada. So we, understanding the massive growth that this sport has been seeing primarily in Asia, but of course in Northern Europe, the opportunity to approach Rogers Communications and Sportsnet and acquire the Grand Slam of curling was an opportunity that we couldn't say no to. The Grand Slam of curling is the only property that features the world's best curlers in the sport. It's the only one. And it has only been seen by Canadian curling fans up until this point while there's over 250 million curling fans in the world. The World Championships last year of curling alone had an audience of over 90 million unique viewers. And here is a sport, and we are, as Maryann was describing, we are literally at a moment where we're going to be able to use the ownership of this entire sport and create a full media ecosystem to monetize all of that content IP, to monetize the opportunities around gambling that we'll probably touch on, and the opportunity to effectively create the first ever professional franchise-based curling league.
Can you talk a little bit about what's driving the global popularity of curling? Because I think when I talked to people saying that I was getting involved with this, they thought it was just Canada. But in reality, some of the world's best teams are coming out of different parts of the world. Talk a little bit about that, because when you talked to me about that, that's what got me kind of excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, ultimately we've been seeing a lot of extraordinary curlers starting to come up and be evolved from a lot of the countries around the world. And, when you think about curling, there's a perception, right? We all grew up thinking, watching the Brier, watching the Scotties, and we're thinking, out of shape, white people playing curling. Well, that actually is not the case. I remember walking to my very first curling event, and I was absolutely blown away. I walked in and I saw this collection of multinational, multi-ethnic, young, attractive, fit athletes. And then I started to talk to them. And I realized that they were unbelievably charismatic, very intelligent, and incredibly marketable. And that's the other extraordinarily underserved opportunity that we're going to solve is sports fans right now watch sports differently than we all did when we were growing up. The younger sports fan wants to be engaged by short form, snackable pieces of content across a number of their social channels that, as we've heard, that are being played through their mobile devices. Well, we have an incredible array of international talent that has never been properly monetized and never been properly marketed. So we're going to be able to leverage the incredible array of international curlers, create a star system, create that content, and then drive revenue against that content across the digital platforms that are becoming the most popular ways to engage with sport right now.
Right, and let's talk. Oh, what are we doing? That's just what I was going to ask. I think one of the most interesting things that has happened so far has been the unbridled enthusiasm of a truly iconic and global sports media sort of monetization company, let's call it that, Iris. And when Nic and the team went to them to talk about this opportunity, not only did they talk about, hey, can we, write a check? Can we convert some of our work into equity? Because they could see the future, because they sell these rights for others of the niche leagues that were up there. But talk a little bit about where we are with them and our efforts to drive monetization, because to remind everybody, the rights that we have, that we acquired with Rogers, are just in Canada. They weren't being monetized anywhere else. So this is a really nice opportunity to generate a little bit of cash while we drive into the Olympics, increase the exposure, and launch the league. So why don't you talk a little bit where we are there?
Yeah, it's been, and I'll start. It's been a busy 5 to 6 months. So literally, I think our first meeting in the Relay office, and Relay was our very first. They were the first group that we decided to speak to, because if you're going to grow a sports media technology business in Canada, well, you want to talk to John Albright and Simon Sokol, of course. And that was on February 28th. We successfully purchased the Grand Slam of Curling from Sportsnet on April 7th. We took possession of the asset on June 30th. We very quickly were able to drive some, and of course our fundraise closed today. One of the very most important pieces to the puzzle was finding an international rights sales and sponsorship distributor. Now, there's a group in Europe that was founded by 2 former executives at IMG, and a third that was a founder of one of the biggest sports betting data companies in the world called Iris Sport. And it didn't take very long. Our agreement with Iris will actually it's already executed. It'll be announced next week. Our first Grand Slam event starts on Tuesday. And so Iris they did all the media and global rights deals for the Live Golf Tour. They've done all the deals for PFL. They're working on a number of other major sports leagues, and they are representing us all over the world. We've already signed one international broadcast partner. We have international distribution rights in Japan now with Abima. That is an 18 million active viewership network in Japan. They are obviously very excited about featuring the Japanese curling team. We are a content and a media business. The way the Grand Slam of curling has typically been broadcast is Sportsnet will literally produce about 20% of the games. They produce one sheet. There's typically 4 sheets of ice going on during one of 4 different draws each day. Curling events are typically 6 days. What we are going to do for the first time through another portfolio company of Relay called Home Team Live is we are going to stream every single sheet, every single draw, every single day, which gives international rights holders and distributors the opportunity to finally showcase to their audiences the games they want to see, which are the games of their country's teams. So unlike Canada, where the Brier and the Scotties is all about Canadian teams, Abima wants to see Team Fujisawa, who also happens to be the most followed curler in the world on social media. So the Iris deal was extraordinarily vital for us. And again, our first Grand Slam is on Tuesday. Today, and in line with our announcement of our seed fundraise, we're showcasing, and you guys will see it in a couple seconds as we wrap up. We're rebranding the entire Grand Slam of curling. We're launching a new app and a new website on Monday. We have a new podcast launching tomorrow. We launched our merch store last night called The Rock Shop, therockshop.net. And yeah, and of course, our goal is to leverage and harness what we inevitably know is going to happen in February of 2026 in Milan Cortina. The whole world is going to fall in love with curling. What we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 18 months rebranding, re-energizing the sport of curling, building to that point of the Olympics, and then right after Milan Cortina in the spring of 2026, we are going to launch the first ever professional franchise-based curling league. So for an easy analogy, what we're going to be able to do is launch the Live Golf Tour and own the PGA Tour at the same time. We will go for it, Maryann.
Well, I want to make it clear because one of the things, and we have a minute here or so, and then we'll run the rebrand. But, part of this is, so you're just going to start a league from nowhere. Part of what is so great about this venture is the Grand Slam of curling is 5 key events, the only ones in the world. You heard that, may as well say it again because it's truly important. And the most important people, and Joe said it earlier, you need to have a player to bet on. We have the players. They're coming to these events. The way you start a league is you sign up the best players. Any niche league starts with the best players. He who gets the best players first will inevitably win. So that's why coming out of here and sooner rather than later starting that league is going to be really important. I just wanted to make sure that you guys all knew that because this is, it's critical. Aside from the media and the rebrand and everything, it's a player first strategy here for sure. And we've got the best players already lined up and ready to go.
Yeah, and you saw them in that opening video. Those are the best curlers in the world from all over the world. And the one thing that I will touch on in our last 90 seconds is how important the gambling piece is to what we're doing. There is no gambling on curling right now. And the reason why there's no gambling on curling is there's no live data. There's no live projections. So I started working with Joe even before started talking with Relay. I had no idea. So by this spring, we're going to launch the first ever live odds projections feed for curling that will allow operators to finally offer curling. And there are 16 live betting moments in every end in curling, and no one in the world has been able to bet on it yet. So the opportunity to tag that into our media piece is just massive.
And part of we'll run the brand in a second here, but it would, it's worthwhile pointing out that this is going to be a gender equity kind of sport. Each curling team in the league is going to have equal number of men and women. We are going to hang on the coattails of the rise and the popularity of women's sports, and we're going to do interesting things in this league. You don't have to have it like the same thing every week, like football or basketball or whatever. We can have mixed. We can have men v. men, women v. women. We can have open. We can have men v. women. Everybody likes a good battle of the sexes. Like, this is going to be fun and compelling content. So that's where we're headed. Roll the
Keeping us to
brand.
15 minutes is a real task.
Look at
eh?
7 seconds. I'm
I know,
perfect.
there you go. So here's the rebrand that is going to be showing on Sportsnet.
Where is it?
There you go.